So imagine taking the world's most aggressive, like battle-hardened military general and just forcing him to work at a collaborative, feelings-based roundtable.
Oh, that would be a complete disaster.
Right. Like, he can't give orders. He has to hold a talking stick. He has to compromise on every single decision. He'd be completely ineffective.
Miserable. Yeah.
Well, when we look at the cosmic machinery we're studying today in this deep dive, if you put the warrior planet, Mars, in the deeply emotional, watery sign of Cancer, that is exactly what happens.
It's a complete short circuit of his natural function. And that phenomenon, how a planet's environment dictates its behavior, is really the bedrock of what we are unpacking today.
Yeah. Welcome,
everyone. Today we are immersing ourselves in the dynamic mechanics of Vedic astrology. Specifically, we're looking at planetary dynamics in the P.A.C. system.
Because usually, when people talk about an astrological birth chart, there's this expectation of static permanence.
Definitely. A lot of people fall into that.
Right. You look at a chart, and it feels like looking at a blueprint of a house.
Yeah.
The kitchen is here, the living room is there.
Just fixed in place.
Exactly. You have Venus in this square, Mars in this triangle, and it feels locked. You read a textbook that says Venus means love, and you think, okay, done. I get it.
Which is, frankly, the biggest trap for anyone trying to actually understand this system.
Yeah.
A birth chart is not a static photograph. It is a live-action war room.
A war room. I love that.
It is. It's this breathing, highly reactive ecosystem where these celestial bodies are constantly interacting. They're, allying with one another, sabotaging one another, and just projecting power across the board.
So the mission today is to decode those actual rules of engagement. We want to show you listening right now, maybe you even have your own chart pulled up in front of you, that what a planet inherently means is really only half the story.
Not even half, sometimes.
Right, yeah. The real secret is what that planet is actually doing in that specific environment.
Exactly. The core philosophy we will be unpacking is relativity. Planet's power, its mood, its very capacity to deliver results in your life is entirely dependent on where it sits.
And who it's sitting with, right?
Yes, who it sits with and who is looking at it. Absolutely nothing exists in a vacuum in Jyotish.
It's all connected.
Right. So before a planet can execute its agenda, we have to calculate its intrinsic strength, its allies, and, its structural advantages.
Which brings us to the first massive concept in our research today, which is, I like to call it the high ground.
I like that analogy.
Because before any of these planets start interacting or forming these alliances, we have to figure out how much firepower they actually brought to the battlefield.
Right. You have to weigh them first.
Yeah. And that starts with understanding where they are literally at their best and, where they are completely stripped of their tools.
In Jyotish, we refer to this as the axis of exaltation and debilitation.
And the Sanskrit terms for that are Ucha and Nicha.
Right. Correct. Uka for exalted and Nicha for debilitated. And what is just vital to grasp here is that this isn't just a vague feeling of Mars really likes this zodiac sign.
It's not just a vibe.
No, not a vibe at all. It is a mathematical absolute. Planets have specific pinpoint degrees within certain signs where they achieve their absolute maximum power.
And exact opposite degrees where they hit rock bottom.
Exactly.
Let's break down the psychology of this, because I don't want to just, rattle off a list of degrees for you guys. Let's look at the sun.
Okay, a great starting point.
The research says the sun is exalted in exactly 10 degrees of Aries. But if it sits at exactly 10 degrees of Libra, it's in full debilitation. So why that specific polarity?
Well, to understand the why, we have to look at the archetype. The sun represents the soul, the ego, pure authority. It's the concept of the absolute king.
Right. The king doesn't negotiate.
Never. The king wants to shine and rule unilaterally. Now look at Aries. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. It's fiery, it's cardinal, meaning it initiates action, and it is ruled by Mars.
The commander of the army.
Exactly. So when you put the king in the commander's fiery territory, surrounded by initiating energy, he is completely empowered to lead.
He's ready to go.
Right. 10 degrees of Aries is the absolute sweet spot of that commanding solar authority.
Okay, so then we look across the wheel at Libra. And Libra is ruled by Venus. It's an air sign.
And what does Libra represent, fundamentally?
Balance. The scales, partnerships, diplomacy, compromise.
Yes. So take that absolute uncompromising king and put him in a space where every single decision requires consensus.
Oh, man.
Right, a space where he has to weigh the opinions of others, where harmony is literally valued over bold leadership.
You'd hate it.
He hates it. The sun at 10 degrees of Libra is the king forced into a democratic committee. His inherent nature, that unilateral authority, is diluted to the point of debilitation. He's deeply uncomfortable there.
That makes so much sense. It's like a CEO being forced to work at a collaborative roundtable where every intern gets a veto.
Exactly. It completely neuters their specific skill set.
Wow. And this polarity, it shows up beautifully with the moon, too. The text notes the moon hits its absolute peak exaltation at 3 degrees of Taurus, but completely plummets at 3 degrees of Scorpio.
Right. And the moon is arguably the most sensitive point in the entire chart.
Because it's the mind, right?
The mind, our emotions, our psychological stability, and the archetype of the mother. It is fluctuating, it's watery, and it's incredibly absorbent.
So how does Taurus help that?
Well, Taurus is an earth sign. It's fixed, it doesn't move, and it is ruled by Venus, bringing this sense of luxury, beauty, and comfort.
So Taurus provides like a container.
A very thick, stable, beautiful container for that fluctuating water. The mind feels secure there. It's nourished and grounded.
I see.
3 degrees of Taurus is the absolute peak of psychological security. But then you look at Scorpio.
Right, Scorpio.
Yeah.
Which is ruled by Mars.
Yes. Scorpio is the natural 8th house of the zodiac. It deals with hidden things, sudden transformations, trauma, the occult, deep, dark, emotional swamps.
A tough neighborhood.
Very. So you are taking the delicate, sensitive, fluctuating mind and just dropping it into a volatile, intense, shadowy battlefield.
Oh, wow.
At 3 degrees of Scorpio, the mind is in a constant state of hypervigilance and crisis. It is profoundly debilitated.
It's like taking a highly sensitive, empathetic poet and dropping him into a psychological thriller. They're going to completely break down.
Absolutely would.
Let's look at the interplay between Mars and Jupiter, because the research highlights a really fascinating symmetry here.
Yes. Action versus wisdom.
Exactly. So Mars, our aggressive general, is exalted at 28 degrees of Capricorn. But Jupiter, the wise guru, is debilitated at that exact same spot.
Right, 5 degrees of Capricorn to be precise.
Yes, 5 degrees, and they flip in Cancer. Jupiter's exalted in Cancer. Mars is debilitated in Cancer. Why the switch?
This is one of the most revealing structural mechanics in astrology. Mars is physical energy, warfare, execution. Capricorn is an earth sign ruled by Saturn.
And Saturn is the rule maker. Right?
Saturn is structure, rules, delay, and extreme cold discipline.
So why does the aggressive general love Saturn's strict environment? Shouldn't he want to just run wild?
Because undirected aggression is just violence.
Oh, that's a good point.
Right. Mars needs a container to be effective. When you put the warrior in Capricorn, Saturn forces him to be disciplined. He becomes a strategic, patient, structural mastermind.
He becomes an unstoppable, organized force.
Exactly. But Jupiter is the planet of expansion, higher philosophy, spiritual freedom, and grace.
Okay, I see where this is going. So if Jupiter is expansion, putting him in Saturn's sign of Capricorn is like putting the guru in a maximum security prison.
Precisely. The strict, cold, material boundaries of Capricorn completely suffocate Jupiter's expansive spiritual nature.
He can't breathe in there.
Right. Jupiter wants to give freely, and Saturn says, no. What is the practical return on investment? Jupiter becomes deeply depressed there.
But then you put Jupiter in Cancer, the watery, nurturing sign of the moon, and that wisdom can flow boundlessly.
It becomes supreme compassion.
And Mars in Cancer, as we established earlier, is the general drowning in his feelings.
Exactly.
We're seeing this theme over and over. It's about how the planet's intrinsic nature meshes with the host environment. Like Venus, the planet of love and luxury, is exalted at 27 degrees of Pisces, right?
Yes, a sign of boundless, unconditional spiritual love.
But it's debilitated at 27 degrees of Virgo, which is a sign of critical, analytical, detail-oriented nitpicking.
Right.
You can't experience transcendent romance if you're constantly criticizing how the towels are folded.
That is the perfect way to describe Venus in Virgo.
And Saturn, the planet of structure and service, loves the diplomatic, fair-minded balance of Libra. It's exalted at 20 degrees there.
Correct.
But put Saturn in the fiery, impulsive, ego-driven sign of Aries, debilitated at 20 degrees.
Yes. But there is one major exception in our research. One planet that plays by entirely different rules when it comes to exaltation. Mercury is fascinating. The data shows Mercury is exalted at 15 degrees of Virgo. And what makes this unique is that Virgo is Mercury's own sign.
Wait, really?
Yes, it is the only planet that finds its absolute peak of exaltation in a sign it already rules.
Why does Mercury get to stay home to reach its peak, while everyone else has to travel to another planet's sign?
Well, think about what Mercury represents. It's the intellect, data, logic, language, the nervous system.
Okay, so information processing.
Right. And Virgo represents supreme organization, categorization, and analytical processing. It's essentially the digestive system of the zodiac.
Digesting data.
Exactly. Mercury doesn't need to go borrow someone else's energy to become powerful. Logic and data find their highest expression simply by becoming perfectly organized.
So at 15 degrees of Virgo, Mercury is like it's the ultimate supercomputer operating in a perfectly climate-controlled server room.
That's exactly it.
Okay, so exaltation and debilitation, Ucha and Nietzsche are the absolute extremes.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, most planets in a person's chart aren't going to be sitting in those exact pinpoint degrees.
No, that would be very rare.
Right. So we have to look at the hierarchy of strength. The research outlines a tiered system. Below exaltation is something called Mul Trikona, and below that is own house.
This hierarchy is crucial for understanding how consistently a planet performs.
Yeah.
Most planets, well, excluding the sun and moon, rule two different zodiac signs.
Like Mars rules Aries and Scorpio.
Right, but it doesn't treat them equally. One of those signs is designated as its Mul Trikona, its root of power. The other is simply its own house.
Let's use an analogy for this because I think it helps. Exaltation is like the planet winning an Olympic gold medal. It's a peak experience. But Mul Trikona is like the planet's primary office. And the own house is like its living room.
That framing works perfectly. Let's look at the moon. The moon's exaltation point is 3 degrees of Taurus.
Right.
But from 3 degrees all the way to 30 degrees of Taurus, that space is considered the moon's Mul Trikona. It's the office.
So still very strong there.
Highly active, focused, executing its primary mission. It is awake and doing the work, producing very tangible results.
And the moon's own house is Cancer. So when it's in Cancer, it's in the living room.
Exactly. It is completely comfortable, it feels safe, it's lounging in its pajamas. A planet in its own house is secure and will protect that area of your life, but
it doesn't have that driving intensity.
right, it lacks the executive intensity of a planet in its Mul Trikona. It's strong, but it's relaxed.
So we have the gold medal exaltation, the busy office Mul Trikona, the comfortable home own house, and the miserable prison debilitation.
Yes, that's the spectrum.
But the research highlights another factor, a phenomenon that can completely strip a planet of its power, even if it is sitting in its exaltation sign. And that is combustion, or Copa.
Yes, combustion. It's a visual and astronomical reality that Jyotish translates into profound psychological meaning.
How does it happen?
It occurs when any planet gets too close to the sun. The sun is a massive burning star. When another planet enters a specific proximity to it, its individual light is completely drowned out by those blinding rays.
You literally can't see it in the night sky.
We literally cannot see it. And in the horoscopic chart, this means the planet's ability to manifest its independent agenda is just burned up.
I picture it like a highly skilled professional. Let's take Venus, our brilliant graphic designer. If Venus is exalted in Pisces, she's got an unlimited budget, great software, beautiful inspiration.
She's at her peak.
But if Venus gets too close to the sun, combustion happens. It's like that brilliant designer being pulled into a meeting with the overpowering, booming CEO of the sun.
Right, the CEO effect.
Yeah, the blinding spotlight of the CEO takes over the entire room. Venus is sitting right there. She's technically in the meeting, but she can't get a single word in. Her creative power is zeroed out by the boss's ego.
And this causes immense frustration for the significations of that planet in a person's life. The designer knows she has the talent, but she feels completely invisible.
And the specific degrees where this happens vary by planet, right?
They do, based on their size and natural luminosity.
The numbers in the research are very specific. So the moon gets burned up if it comes within 12 degrees of the sun, Mars within 17 degrees, Jupiter, 11 degrees.
Saturn is a bit further out, combusting at 15 degrees.
Right. Venus is within 8 degrees, or 10 if it happens to be moving retrograde. And Mercury, which is, always zipping around the sun anyway, has a tighter tolerance, 12 degrees, or 14 if retrograde.
When you look at your chart, if you see a planet sitting in the same sign as the sun, you immediately check those degrees. If it is within those orbs, you know that planet is operating under severe duress.
Even if it's exalted.
Its intrinsic power is compromised, absolutely, no matter how good the sign placement is.
But wait, because these planets are always in motion, they aren't just frozen in these states, right? Like, the research mentions a dynamic called arohi and avrohi.
Yes, momentum is everything. Astrological interpretation requires understanding trajectory.
So what does that look like?
Let's say a planet is moving toward its exact exaltation degree. It hasn't reached it yet, but that is its trajectory. This state is called arohi, which translates to ascending.
Okay, ascending.
The planet is gaining momentum, gaining confidence. It feels the impending surge of power.
It's like an athlete in the final weeks of training before the Olympics. They aren't at peak yet, but the energy is building every single day.
Exactly. And conversely, a planet moving toward its debilitation degree is arohi, descending.
So it's losing steam.
Slowly losing steam, sensing an impending crisis. In fact, the texts go even deeper on this. They use the term uksh-abilashi to describe a planet that is exactly one sign away from its exaltation.
Meaning?
It means it is highly eager. Its anticipation of power actually elevates its current performance. And Nishabalashi is a planet one sign away from debilitation. It is already anxious, already pulling back its resources because it knows winter is coming.
Wow. I love how this takes what looks like a flat piece of paper and turns it into a living narrative. You aren't just looking at where the piece is on the board, you are looking at its speed, its direction, and whether it's energized or exhausted.
That's the beauty of planetary dynamics.
So that covers the intrinsic strength of the combatants. We know who brought heavy artillery and who showed up empty-handed, but, as we said at the start, this is a battlefield.
Yes, it is.
And on a battlefield, it doesn't matter how strong you are if you are completely surrounded by enemies. Like, a weak planet supported by a brilliant team can achieve far more than a strong planet being sabotaged from all sides.
Which brings us to one of the most intellectually elegant systems in all of Jyotish, the art of planetary alliances.
The Panchda-maitri system, right?
Yes, the fivefold friendship system. How do we determine who has a planet's back?
I have to say, when I first read this section of the research, my mind was blown. Because I always assumed planetary friendships were just like a static list, like, oh, the moon likes Jupiter, end of story.
Many beginners think exactly that.
But this system proves it's a highly dynamic matrix. It combines permanent baseline relationships with situational, temporary dynamics that change with every single birth chart.
It is a brilliant reflection of actual human sociology. The fivefold friendship system asks us to calculate two completely independent layers of relationship and then synthesize them.
Layer 1 is natural friendship.
Right. This is permanent. It has been the same for thousands of years. Layer 2 is temporal friendship. This is entirely situational, based purely on proximity in the specific chart you're looking at.
Let's unpack the permanent baseline first.
Yeah.
Natural friendship. How on earth did ancient astrologers determine who naturally likes who?
They didn't just guess, I can assure you. It is derived from a strict mathematical rule based on the mul trikona, the office sign we just discussed.
Okay, so the math starts at the office.
Yes. To find a planet's permanent friends, you locate its mul trikona sign. From that starting point, count the houses. Any signs that fall in the 2nd, 4th, 5th, 8th, 9th, and 12th positions from the mul trikona are considered natural friends.
And the planets that rule those signs become the permanent buddies.
Exactly.
And the enemies.
Signs placed in the 3rd, 6th, 7th, 10th, and 11th positions from the mul trikona are natural enemies.
But wait, earlier you mentioned that most planets rule two different signs. So if I'm doing this math, couldn't a planet rule one sign that falls in a friend position, but its other sign falls in an enemy position?
You've hit on the exact mechanism that creates nuance in this system.
Yes. So what happens?
If a planet's two signs give contradictory results, one votes friend, one votes enemy, they cancel each other out, that planet becomes a natural neutral.
Oh, that makes sense.
Furthermore, the lord of a planet's exaltation sign is always considered neutral.
Okay, so that establishes the permanent DNA of the relationship. It gives us natural friends, natural enemies, and natural neutrals. I was trying to map this to real life, and here's how I view it.
Go ahead.
Natural friends are your childhood buddies. You grew up together, your families know each other, you have a baseline bond that is permanent. Natural enemies are your childhood rivals. You just fundamentally rub each other the wrong way. Your temperaments clash. And natural neutrals are just people in your hometown you vaguely know but don't have strong feelings about. That is the permanent baseline.
That's a very accurate psychological map.
But then a person is born. The cosmic clock stops, the chart is cast, and all these planets are dropped into specific houses for that exact moment in time. And suddenly, a whole new layer of relationship activates.
Temporal friendship, situational alliances.
Huh.
This layer doesn't care about your permanent DNA or your planetary temperament. It only cares about spatial proximity in the chart.
The rules for this in the research are fascinating. It says that planets sitting in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 10th, 11th, and 12th houses away from a specific planet become its temporary friends.
Let's visualize that. If a planet is in house 1, the planets in houses 2, 3, and 4, the ones immediately ahead of it, are temporal friends.
Ugh, ahead of it.
The planets in 12, 11, and 10, the ones immediately behind it, are also temporal friends. They are close enough to communicate and offer support, but far enough away that they aren't stepping on each other's toes.
So who are the temporary enemies?
Planets sitting in the exact same sign, house 1, or sitting in the remaining houses across the chart. The 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th.
Why are those enemies?
Those placements create situational friction, competition, or ideological disconnect. And notice, in temporal friendship, there are no neutrals. You are either a situational ally or you are a situational threat.
Going back to my analogy, temporal friends are your situational allies at your current job. They are the people on your current project team. You need each other to get this specific presentation done.
Right.
And temporal enemies are the people competing for your promotion at your current job,
Yeah.
or the people actively trying to defund your department.
Yes, the situational rivals.
So to find out how two planets are actually going to interact in your specific chart, you have to synthesize the childhood history with the current office politics. This creates the five-fold system.
Let's walk through the synthesis. If a natural friend, a childhood buddy, also becomes a temporal friend, they are put on your project team at work, what happens?
Friend plus friend equals best friend. The Sanskrit text calls this Adi Mitra. They're deeply bonded and currently working toward the exact same situational goal. That planet will bend over backward to help you.
Correct. Now, what if a natural enemy, your childhood rival, becomes a temporal enemy? They are actively competing for your promotion.
Enemy plus enemy equals bitter enemy, or Adi Shatru. This is maximum toxicity. That planet will actively work to sabotage your agenda in the chart.
But the real magic happens in the mixed states. What if your childhood buddy, natural friend, ends up in a temporal enemy position? Say, they are competing against you for that promotion.
Friend plus enemy neutralizes. They become a functional neutral. You still have that underlying respect, but situationally, you can't help each other right now. You just stay out of each other's way.
Exactly. And conversely, if your childhood rival is placed in a temporal friend position, they are put on your project team, and you are forced to collaborate to save the company they also neutralize. You put aside your permanent differences to get the job done.
And finally, the neutrals. If a permanent neutral becomes a temporal friend, they bump up to friend. If they become a temporal enemy, they bump down to enemy.
The math is very clean.
I really want to ground this. Let's take 10 minutes and just build a hypothetical scenario in a listener's chart to see how this math completely changes in interpretation. Let's use Jupiter.
A perfect subject. Jupiter's natural permanent friends are the Sun, the Moon, and Mars. Its natural permanent enemies are Mercury and Venus. Saturn is neutral. That is the baseline we bring into every single chart.
Okay, let's say you, the listener, have Jupiter placed in your first house, right on the ascendant. And let's say Mars is sitting in your 12th house.
According to the temporal proximity rules, any planet sitting one house behind in the 12th house from the reference planet is a temporal friend. So Mars is a temporal friend.
And Mars is already a natural friend. So natural friend plus temporal friend means Mars is Jupiter's best friend in this chart.
Exactly, Adi Mitra. So what does that mean practically? Jupiter represents wisdom, expansion, and life purpose. In the first house, it is trying to expand the person's identity and life path.
And Mars is right behind it.
Mars is in the 12th house, which rules hidden things, the subconscious, and foreign lands. Because Mars is a best friend here, the intense, aggressive energy of Mars in the subconscious is not going to sabotage the person.
It's not a hidden enemy.
No, instead, Mars will act as a hidden battery, a secret reserve of courage, constantly feeding energy to Jupiter to help the person confidently expand their identity. Mars has Jupiter's back from the shadows.
Wow. Okay, now let's place Venus in this hypothetical chart. Venus is Jupiter's natural enemy. They fundamentally disagree on philosophy. Jupiter wants spiritual truth. Venus wants sensory pleasure.
They do not see eye to eye.
Let's say in this chart, Venus is sitting in the exact same first house as Jupiter. They're conjunct.
Well, the temporal rule states that planets sitting in the exact same house are temporal enemies. They are too close. They are competing for the exact same energetic bandwidth.
So Venus is a natural enemy, and because they are sharing a room, she is also a temporal enemy. Enemy plus enemy equals bitter enemy.
Atishatru. In this chart, Venus is actively toxic to Jupiter's agenda.
So how does that play out for you, the person living this chart? Jupiter is trying to build spiritual identity in the first house, but this bitter enemy, Venus, is sitting right next to him.
It creates profound internal friction. Every time Jupiter tries to lead the person toward a higher philosophical purpose, Venus pulls the steering wheel toward indulgence, vanity, or relationship drama.
And because they're bitter enemies, there's no compromise.
None. The person will feel constantly torn between their higher ideals and their material desires, and Venus will actively block Jupiter's blessings from fully manifesting.
This changes everything about how you read a chart.
Yeah.
I mean, you could have a Jupiter that is mathematically exalted, say they are in Cancer, Arohi, moving toward peak degrees.
A very strong Jupiter.
But if that Jupiter is sharing a room with a bitter enemy who is constantly undercutting it, Jupiter simply cannot deliver the pure, unadulterated blessings you might expect. The textbook says, exalted Jupiter means great luck. The dynamic reality says, exalted Jupiter is fighting for his life in a crowded room.
Which is exactly why memorizing planetary definitions without understanding the Panchda-maitri system is, honestly, astrological malpractice.
It really is.
The environment modifies the power. Always.
Okay, so we have the combatants' intrinsic strengths, and we know exactly who their situational allies and enemies are. We know who is whispering support from the 12th house and who is actively sabotaging them in the first.
The board is set.
But how do they actually execute their influence across the rest of the board? Like, how does a planet in the first house affect something happening in the 7th house or the 10th house?
This brings us to the true interpretive engine of Jyotish, the P.A.C. framework.
P.A.C. is an acronym for placement, aspect, and conjunction. This is the holy trinity of horoscopic interpretation. If you want to know what a planet is actually doing, you must analyze its P.A.C.
Let's break these three pillars down.
The first is placement. This seems straightforward. It's simply where the planet lives. Which of the 12 houses is it sitting in?
Right.
If the birth chart is a giant house, placement is asking, is a planet in the kitchen, the bedroom, or the basement?
Yes. The house dictates the arena of life the planet is tasked with managing. Placement in the 4th house means the planet's energy is poured into the home, the mother, and inner peace.
In the 10th house?
Placement in the 10th house means the energy is projected outward into career and public reputation. Placement is the physical foundation of the planet's influence.
Then we have conjunction. The C in P.A.C., this is who the planet is sharing a room with. Are they alone in the kitchen, or are there 3 other people in there with them?
And as we just learned from the temporal friendship rules, if they are sharing a room, they are automatically temporal enemies.
So conjunctions inherently carry a level of tension, even if the planets are natural friends. It's crowded.
Conjunction is the physical blending of energies. 2 planets in the same sign cannot operate completely independently. Their agendas become inextricably intertwined.
You mean an example?
Well, if you have Mars and Venus conjunct, you cannot separate your drive for warfare Mars from your drive for love Venus. They fuse, creating passionate, sometimes volatile relationship dynamics. Conjunction is a localized knot of energy.
The most dynamic part of the system, the part that truly turns this static grid into an interconnected web of lasers, is the A aspect. In Sanskrit, Drishti.
The power of the gaze. Drishti literally translates to sight or vision.
So they're looking at things.
In Vedic astrology, physical planets don't just affect the room they are sitting in, they cast a gaze across the chart, projecting their energy, their mood, and their agenda onto the houses and planets they look at.
And the research outlines a very specific set of rules for how these planets look at the board. There's a universal rule that applies to everyone, and then there are the special forces.
Let's start with the universal rule, the 7th aspect.
The text says every single physical planet looks directly across the chart, exactly 180 degrees, at the 7th house from itself.
It's the axis of polarity. If a planet is standing in house 1, looking straight ahead, it is staring directly at house 7. If it is in house 4, it looks straight across at house 10.
Just a straight line.
Every physical planet projects its energy down this direct line of sight.
I should note, you specify physical planets. The research points out that Rahu and Ketu, the north and south nodes of the moon, do not have aspects in this traditional framework because they are mathematical shadow points, not physical bodies with mass.
Correct. They rely entirely on placement and conjunction.
But the physical bodies, Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, all have that direct seventh house gaze. It creates a line of tension and connection.
But here is where the rules of engagement get totally asymmetrical.
And honestly, this is where my mind really lit up. 3 planets, specifically the outer, slower-moving planets, have additional specialized gazes, full aspects that only they possess: Mars, Saturn, and Jupiter.
These 3 carry the heaviest weight in chart interpretation precisely because they influence more of the board. They have a wider field of vision.
Yeah, the research gives us the numbers, but I really want to understand the why. Why these specific houses? Let's unpack the personalities of these special aspects, starting with Mars. The text says Mars aspects the 4th, 7th, and 8th houses from itself.
Yes, 4, 7, and 8.
Before we map this out, remind me, what do the 4th and 8th houses fundamentally represent in the zodiac?
The 4th house represents the home, the homeland, real estate, the mother, and our innermost foundational security. The 8th house represents hidden things, the underworld, vulnerabilities, sudden ambushes, and mortality.
Okay, so watch how perfectly this maps to the archetype. Mars is the tactical commander, the protector, the general.
Right.
The 7th aspect is obvious. That's the universal gaze. The commander is staring directly in front of him, keeping his eye on the enemy, the opposition, the partner, across the negotiation table. It's direct confrontation.
Yes, the forward assault.
But the 4th aspect, if the 4th house is the home, the commander is looking straight ahead at the enemy in the 7th, but he's also looking over his shoulder at a 90-degree angle to secure his home base in the 4th.
He is actively guarding the perimeter.
His gaze protects his territory.
A brilliant deduction. It is a highly defensive posture. And the 8th aspect.
The 8th house is hidden traps and ambushes. So the tactical commander is looking at the enemy, securing the base, and scanning the shadows in the trenches for surprise attacks in the 8th. Mars' special gaze isn't arbitrary. It is entirely tactical, protective, military sweep of the board.
It perfectly encapsulates Martian energy. Wherever Mars looks, it brings structural defense, strategy, and sometimes hypervigilant aggression.
Now let's contrast that with Saturn, the heaviest planet. The research tells us Saturn aspects the 3rd, 7th, and 10th houses from itself.
Right. 3, 7, and 10.
Okay, let's figure this one out. Saturn is the planet of limitation, delay, hard work, discipline, aging, and facing cold reality. I always picture Saturn as the ultimate, unforgiving, strict auditor.
That's a very fair assessment of Saturn.
What do the 3rd and 10th houses represent?
The 3rd house is the house of immediate efforts, short-term courage, manual skills, and the daily grind. It is an upachaya house, meaning it grows over time through sheer friction and effort.
And the 10th?
The 10th house is the zenith of the chart. It is your career, your public standing, your ultimate authority, and your legacy in the world.
Okay, so the auditor has the 7th aspect looking directly across at the other, the interpersonal contract.
Always auditing the contracts.
But the 3rd aspect, if the 3rd house is the daily grind, Saturn's gaze there is the auditor standing directly over your shoulder, micromanaging your daily discipline.
He's looking at your hands, making sure you are doing the tedious manual work without taking any shortcuts. Saturn forces effort. He demands a ledger of your daily activities.
And the 10th aspect, the career and legacy. So Saturn the auditor is checking your daily grind in the 3rd, auditing your interpersonal contracts in the 7th, and demanding strict accountability for your public legacy in the 10th.
Exactly.
Wherever Saturn looks, he places a massive burden of responsibility, a demand for structural integrity, and usually a delay in results until the work is proven. His gaze is heavy. It crystallizes things.
It is the gaze of absolute reality. It restricts and hardens wherever it lands. You cannot escape a Saturn aspect. You can only work through it.
Which brings us to the final and perhaps most welcome special gaze, Jupiter.
Yes, Jupiter aspects the 5th, 7th, and 9th houses from itself.
The great benefic, the guru, the planet of expansion, luck, and wisdom. What is the architecture of the 5th and 9th houses?
This is where we see the profound spiritual geometry of Jyotish. In the horoscopic form, the 1st, 5th, and 9th houses form an equilateral triangle.
A triangle.
Yes. This is called the Dharma tricon, the trine of righteousness, cosmic purpose, and spiritual merit. The 5th house represents creativity, intelligence, children, and purv punya, the accumulated merit of your past good deeds.
And the 9th?
The 9th house represents higher knowledge, the guru, the father, fortune, and deep philosophy.
Oh, wow. So Jupiter doesn't look around tactically for enemies like Mars, and he doesn't audit your paperwork like Saturn. Jupiter specifically projects his vision along the lines of the Dharma tricon. He looks at the houses of grace.
Exactly. Jupiter's gaze is universally considered a supreme blessing. Wherever Jupiter looks, he expands, protects, and infuses that specific area of your life with optimism and a sense of higher purpose.
Even if he's debilitated?
Even if Jupiter is debilitated, his gaze still carries a protective, benevolent intention.
It's the gaze of a loving teacher trying to elevate you. He focuses his vision on your creative potential in the 5th and your highest philosophical ideals in the 9th, while still blessing your relationships in the 7th.
It's a beautiful energy.
So practically speaking, when you are looking at a chart, you can't just look at where a planet is. You have to draw these invisible lines of sight all across the board.
You must map the Drishti.
Right, because you might look at your chart and say, oh no, my 10th house of career is completely empty. I have no planets there.
Right.
But if Saturn is sitting in your 1st house, he is casting his 10th aspect directly onto that empty career house.
It isn't empty. It is being heavily supervised by the strictest auditor in the zodiac. It completely changes the interpretation.
The chart is a web. The P.A.C. framework placement aspect conjunction illuminates the strands of that web. You are never just looking at a point, you are looking at an intersection of gazes and alliances.
Perfectly said.
Okay, let's take a beat. So far, we've covered the standard rules of engagement. We know how to calculate a planet's intrinsic strength, we know how to calculate its dynamic friendships, and we know how it uses its special gaze to influence the battlefield.
The standard rules, yes.
But the source material doesn't stop with the standard rules.
No, it doesn't. Astrological reality, much like human reality, is full of anomalies.
Right. What happens when the standard rules break down? What happens when planets literally crash into each other? Or when the inherent structure of the chart creates a bizarre philosophical paradox?
We enter the realm of planetary states and structural crises.
Let's start with the concept of planetary states, or awastas. Because earlier we talked about a planet being strong or weak based on its sign. But the research details that planets don't even behave uniformly within a single 30-degree sign. They go through a life cycle.
This is a highly granular layer of interpretation called the Baladi Awastas, which translates to the states from infancy to death.
Wait, infancy to death inside a single sign?
Yes. The concept is that the exact mathematical degree of a planet dictates its age or maturity level in that specific environment.
The math here is poetic, but incredibly rigid. The text breaks a 30-degree zodiac sign down into 5 equal 6-degree chunks.
Correct. Let's look at an odd sign first, like Aries, Gemini, or Leo.
The first chunk from 0 to 6 degrees is called Baal, which means infant.
Think about an infant. An infant planet has pure, uncorrupted energy, but it has very little capability, direction, or power to execute. It is just waking up in that sign. It can't produce massive results yet.
Then from 6 to 12 degrees is Kumar, youth. From 12 to 18 degrees is Yuva, the prime of life.
This is the planet at its absolute most capable, mature, and powerful execution state. It is the fully realized adult in the room.
Then 18 to 24 degrees is Verda, old age. The energy is waning, the planet is getting tired. And the final stretch, 24 to 30 degrees, is Mrita, dead.
The planet has completely exhausted its energy in that sign.
But here is the twist. The text notes that in even signs like Taurus, Cancer, or Virgo, the order completely reverses.
Yes, the polarity flips.
The first 6 degrees are dead and the last 6 degrees are infant. The prime is still in the middle.
The implications of this are staggering when you are reading a chart. Let's use our commander Mars. We know Mars is exalted in Capricorn.
Right, the peak of discipline.
And Capricorn is an even sign. So imagine someone has Mars at 2 degrees of Capricorn. According to the standard rules, you'd say, wow, exalted Mars. You have the ultimate warrior in his ultimate territory.
But because it's an even sign, 0 to 6 degrees is the Rita state, dead.
Exactly. You have the ultimate warrior in his favorite fortress, but he is completely exhausted. He is functionally asleep on the battlefield.
That's crazy.
The capacity to deliver those exalted results is severely compromised by his age.
That is wild. The degree isn't just a coordinate on a map. It is a vital sign. It's a pulse check.
Yes, a pulse check.
And the text goes on to say that beyond their physical age, planets also have psychological moods, called positional awastas.
Yes, a planet is dipta, radiant when exalted. Svasta healthy and confident when in its own sign. Mudita happy when sitting in the sign of a friend.
And miserable.
Kala miserable in the sign of an enemy. And Vikala severely distressed when conjunct with malefic planet.
It humanizes the chart so deeply. You weren't reading symbols, you were reading a cast of characters. You have an infant Mars who is deeply distressed. You have an elderly Jupiter who is radiant.
It adds incredible psychological depth.
But what happens when two of these characters try to occupy the exact same physical space? The text talks about an anomaly called Graha Yuddha, or planetary war.
This is a critical structural crisis. Planetary war occurs when two true physical planets, so we exclude the Sun, the Moon, Rahu, and Ketu, come within one exact mathematical degree of each other in the same zodiac sign.
They are stepping on each other's toes.
It's much closer than that. They are in a physical grapple. They are fighting for the exact same energetic bandwidth, the exact same sliver of cosmic real estate. And only one can control it.
Okay, the rule the text provides for this is definitive, but I have to push back on it because it feels completely counterintuitive.
Let's hear it.
The rule says, the planet with the lower degrees wins the planetary war. Why? In almost every other system in the world, a higher number implies more power, more progress, more maturity.
That's a Western perspective, yeah.
Right. If Venus is at 14.1 degrees and Mars is at 14.9 degrees, why does the lower degree of Venus get the victory? Is it because they are fresher in the sign? Or did they secure the lower center of gravity in a wrestling match? It just doesn't make logical sense to me.
It's a fantastic question, and it speaks to how space and territory work in Jyotish. It isn't about maturity. It is about who initiated the encounter and who holds the foundational ground.
Foundational ground.
Think of the 30 degrees of a sign as a physical territory you are walking across. The planet at the lower degree entered that specific 1 degree zone first. It arrived first.
Oh, I see.
It claimed the terrain. It holds the concentrated initiating energy of that specific space. The planet at the higher degree is arriving later, essentially crashing into the already established frequency of the lower degree planet.
Ah, so the lower degree planet is the defender of the space. It built the fort.
Yes, they set up camp.
In this specific type of close quarters combat, the defender wins because they have established their footing and set the rules of engagement.
Exactly. The lower degree planet sets the agenda, and the higher degree planet is subjugated to it. The winner of the planetary war exerts its influence, while the loser is severely debilitated.
So the loser just gets crushed.
The loser's significations, the things it rules in your life, are crushed as collateral damage in that clash.
It makes you look at conjunctions with so much more scrutiny. They aren't just roommates hanging out. If they get too close, they're in a literal death match for control of your energy.
It's a very precarious situation.
Now, if planetary war is a crisis of physical proximity, the research outlines another crisis that is purely structural. And honestly, this was the most mind-bending philosophical concept in the entire document. It's called Kendra-hipati dosha.
Yeah.
I want to spend some real time on this because it challenges everything we think we know about what is good in a chart.
It is arguably one of the most profound psychological truths embedded in astrology. Let's define the terms. Dosha means flaw, blemish, or corruption.
And Kendra-hipati.
Kendra-hipati refers to the rulership of the Kendra houses. The Kendras are the 4 angular pillars of the chart. The 1st house self, the 4th house home, the 7th house partnerships, and the 10th house career.
These are the most active, visible, material houses.
Yeah.
The foundations of earthly life.
Yes. Now, the rule of the dosha is this. Natural benefics, the undeniably good guys of the zodiac, specifically Jupiter, Venus, a strongly placed Mercury, and a bright moon, actually acquire a dosha, a structural flaw, if they own and rule these powerful Kendra houses.
Wait, if the most helpful, wisest, most generous planets are given the keys to the most powerful foundational houses in the chart, they become flawed.
That is the rule.
That seems entirely backward. If you are building a society, don't you want the wisest guru, Jupiter, and the most loving diplomat, Venus, in charge of the pillars? Why would giving the good guys power create a blemish?
It seems counterintuitive until you understand the underlying philosophy of human nature, which Jyotish mirrors perfectly. The text notes that Jupiter and Venus suffer this unconditionally.
Unconditionally flawed by power.
Yes. Mercury and Moon are conditional based on other factors, and dual ascendance people with Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, or Pisces rising suffer this the most because their Kendras are entirely ruled by Jupiter and Mercury.
So why does it happen?
Yeah.
Why do Jupiter and Venus lose their pure goodness when given structural power?
Because absolute comfort dulls the spiritual edge.
Okay, let's unpack that. That's a big statement.
The Kendra houses are houses of material foundation, societal structure, and earthly stability. They are about building a comfortable, secure life. Now, what is Jupiter's fundamental nature?
Spiritual wisdom, expanding beyond the material realm.
Exactly. Jupiter is the planet of profound spiritual wisdom, the desire for higher truth, liberation. Venus is the planet of ultimate devotion and higher love.
Right.
When you take the purest spiritual seeker Jupiter and you make him the CEO of a massive, comfortable, materially secure corporation, which is what ruling the Kendras represents, what happens to him?
He gets comfortable. He gets a corner office.
Yeah.
He gets complacent. He stops seeking higher truth because all of his earthly needs are perfectly, seamlessly met.
Precisely. The dosha, the flaw, isn't that Jupiter suddenly becomes evil or malicious. It is that he becomes materially attached.
He loses his edge.
He loses his pure, unadulterated spiritual beneficence because he is too heavily invested in maintaining the material structure of the Kendras. He becomes a manager of earthly affairs, a protector of the status quo, rather than a guide to spiritual liberation.
The blessing becomes a golden handcuff.
That's a perfect way to put it.
I'm thinking about how this applies in real life. We all know people who are born into immense wealth, massive structural stability, perfect homes. They have every material advantage, and sometimes that absolute lack of friction makes them deeply complacent or even apathetic.
Yes, the trust fund effect.
Exactly. They don't develop spiritual resilience because they've never had to question their reality.
That is the exact psychology of Kendra the Pati dosha. The most helpful planets lose their pure goodness when given too much structural power, because a little bit of friction, a little bit of discomfort is required to maintain spiritual sharpness.
So a perfect life can be a trap.
The dosha suggests that a life of perfect material stability can actually be a spiritual dead end.
It completely flips the script on what a good placement is. You might look at a chart and say, wow, your Jupiter rules your 4th house of home and your 7th house of marriage. You are going to have a beautiful house and a wonderfully stable marriage.
And you probably will.
But the astrologer who understands the dosha knows that, yes, you might have the nice house, but that very comfort might make you completely stagnant in your personal evolution. You might settle. You might stop asking the big questions.
It is the profound irony of the human experience written in the stars. Struggle creates seekers. Comfort creates managers.
That is absolutely brilliant. Okay, there's one last structural crisis mentioned in the research, and it shifts us from the spatial reality of the chart into the dimension of time.
Ah, timing.
The clock. Because the chart isn't just a space, it's a clock that is always ticking. And the text highlights a specific timing mechanism called the dasha chidra.
Timing is everything. In Jyotish, planets don't project all their energy all the time. Their potential is unlocked during specific planetary periods called dashas.
Right, like chapters in a book.
Exactly. You might enter a 20-year period ruled entirely by Venus, followed by a 6-year period ruled by the Sun.
And the transition between these major time periods is what the text flags as highly volatile, the dasha chidra. The research defines it as the very end of an outgoing mahadasha, specifically the last 2 smaller sub-periods, or antardashas, and the first 2 sub-periods of the incoming mahadasha.
Think of it as a regime change in a country. The old king's term is up, he is packing up his office, his authority is rapidly waning, and his staff is distracted.
But the new king hasn't taken over yet.
Right, he hasn't fully taken the throne yet, he hasn't established his new laws or brought in his new cabinet.
It is a structural vacuum, the interregnum.
Exactly. It is a period of profound vulnerability and instability because the old rules no longer apply, but the new rules aren't yet in force. And the text explicitly warns that this transition is especially dangerous if it is triggered by what they call chidra planets.
Planets inherently tied to endings and transformations.
Yes, the Lord of the 8th house of sudden changes. Planets sitting in the 8th house. Or lords of highly specific, sensitive mathematical points in the subdivisional charts, like the 64th Navamsha or the 22nd Drekna. These are advanced points of vulnerability.
So if those planets are involved, it gets bumpy.
If the regime change involves these specific planets, the transition can be exceptionally turbulent.
Because you are transitioning the fundamental power structure of your life while simultaneously dealing with the energy of sudden, hidden transformations and mortality. It's like trying to change all 4 tires on a car while driving 80 miles an hour through a minefield.
A very apt, if stressful, analogy. The Dasha Chidra is a humbling reminder that even if your planets are beautifully placed, exalted, and surrounded by best friends,
That doesn't mean it's going to be easy.
the timing of their activation and the friction of their transition can still create profound challenges in a human life.
Okay, let's pull all of this together. We have covered a massive amount of ground today, peeling back layer after layer of this system. We started by looking at a chart as a static blueprint, a simple map.
And we ended up in a war room.
Exactly. What we've discovered is a breathing, highly contextual, incredibly complex ecosystem.
It requires a complete paradigm shift in how we interpret planetary influence.
We've learned that a planet's exact mathematical degree determines its ultimate baseline strength, whether it's the sun commanding from the penthouse in Aries or the moon drowning in the basement of Scorpio.
We've decoded the five-fold friendship system, revealing how a planet's alliances are a constantly shifting matrix of permanent childhood dynamics and temporal situational office politics.
We explored the P.A.C. framework: placement, aspect, conjunction. We learned that planets don't just sit passively in a room, they gaze across the chart, casting tactical defensive lines like Mars, heavy audits like Saturn, or spiritual blessings like Jupiter.
And we navigated the anomalies that break all the rules, the infancy and exhaustion of the Balladiostas, the intense close-quarters grappling matches of planetary war where the defender holds the ground,
And the profound philosophical irony of Kendrakshipati dosha, where too much comfort ruins a spiritual seeker. And of course, the turbulent, anxiety-inducing transitions of the Dasha Chidra.
Every single piece of data modifies the whole. A planet is never just one thing. It is the sum total of its environment, its age, its friends, its enemies, its gaze, and the cosmic clock.
Which means for you listening, the next time you look at a horoscopic chart, whether it is yours, a friend's, or historical figures, you can no longer just look at the symbol. You must look at the entire battlefield.
You have to see the moving pieces.
And that leads us to a final provocative thought to mull over, based on everything we've decoded from these ancient rules of engagement. We learned today that a planet's friendship, its strength, its momentum, and even its core goodness are entirely dependent on its environment and placement. Nothing is inherently absolute.
So ask yourself, as you look at your own charts, and perhaps your own life trajectory,
Are there really any inherently bad planets or evil influences out there?
or is it simply a matter of a powerful, necessary force being placed in a highly challenging battlefield, just waiting for the right situational ally or the right shift in timing to finally unlock its true constructive potential?